said. I know what I said in the last video, and that's still happening. The big video that's supposed to come this week, that's still happening. So I watched Into the Spider-Verse some time ago. It's been a while. I didn't watch it like yesterday. It's been a while. I really I loved the movie. A few years ago when the first one came out, Into the Spider-Verse, I watched that. That was the first movie I ever watched in the theater. And yeah, if you go to the cinema often, you've probably gotten used to that experience. It's not a big deal to you anymore. But when I first went to the cinema, my brain was fully formed. I was old enough to properly and intellectually appreciate the movie-going experience. And that's quite the movie to experience. How's your first? So when this one came out, of course, I knew I had to go watch it. It was a thing for me. It was a whole thing for me. And I was there in the theater, and you've watched it. You know how gorgeous it is. You know how great the story is. Not a perfect story, but a very, very good story. And for a long time, I wasn't really anyone who would cry for any reason. When I was much younger, I wanted to cry a lot because, look at me, I'm pretty skinny, and I've always been skinny and nerdy and kind of frail, and so the world was big and scary to me, and yeah, many things scared me, many people scared me, so many things could push me around so easily. Other people, the world, my own body, because for as long as I could remember, my health had just sucked. And yeah, when I was younger, I would hold back tears a lot. I wouldn't cry. I would hold back tears a lot. You know that thing when you want to cry, but then you just swallow. It burns when you swallow your spit because you want to cry. I don't know the scientific reason behind why that happens, but you know when that happens. You know what I'm talking about. But as I got older, as that happens, I didn't even hold back tears anymore. I wasn't a crying person. But around your early 20s, when you're in adulthood now, you're adulting, the world starts pushing you around again. And so many things scare you again, because you're like, oh, okay, I thought life was kind of weird before, but now it's getting really weird, and I'm all alone. So you start coming up against more situations that make you feel like you want to cry, and you ought to cry. And so in the last few years, I've tried to get myself used to I want to cry occasionally, but I don't actually cry a lot. Why am I talking about crying so much? One of the very few areas that I allow myself to kind of give into my emotions is when I'm watching movies, when I'm watching film, shows, whatever. Because being an animator and being very influenced, of course, by animation and film, storytelling is very important to me. So if anything is going to make me cry, I'm going to let film make me cry. So where I come from, when you're very young, you're given a very large gallon of toxic masculinity juice to drink so that when you grow older, it stops you from crying. So yeah, I still had that residual toxic masculinity juice in my system by the time I started wanting to cry during movies and stuff. But one day, I just let go. I just let go. And it took me a little while to get used to it and not feel a weird way about it, not feel insecure about it. But now I can. I can even cry during a movie in front of my partner, and I don't feel the least bit embarrassed or anything of the sort. I'm like, she she's been with me for a while. She agreed to marry me. She knows the deal. She knows I'm kind of a big baby sometimes, and that's fine. So when I watched Across the Spider-Verse, I didn't think that it would be one of those movies that would make me cry. Why would it? I love animation, and again, Into the Spider-Verse was the first movie I watched in the cinema, so this one was very special to me. But all of that stuff didn't really indicate to me that this would be the movie that I would be crying in. And so the day when I watched it, I watched it with my fiance, and that day actually, we watched two movies. We watched The Little Mermaid first, and we watched it in the kids' theater. We were the only two people in there, and so like we were making a lot of noise, and just we treated it like we were just watching something on the couch, not like in a theater. Usually in a theater, if you're a polite person, you try to keep your mouth shut. But when we were watching The Little Mermaid, we weren't like rowdy, but we weren't trying to stay quiet while we were watching the movie. We were like audibly reacting and laughing, and she's a big Little Mermaid fan, so she was singing throughout all the songs. And then the second movie we watched that day, of course, was Across the Spider-Verse. And the moment we got into that theater, and like the credits start, you know the thing, you were there, you watched it, you know how it starts. Like the moment I sat down, I leaned in. I was like, okay, we're here now. This is a thing. This is happening. And I was so focused on that movie. And in the third act, around the climax of the movie, yeah, I think that is the climax of the movie. Spoilers if you haven't watched it, of course. If you haven't watched it, what are you doing? Go watch the movie. You can finish the video after you watch the movie. In the third act, Miles is running away from all the spider people, and of course Miguel has him dead to rights. Who do you think you are? You know the scene. On the train, like the train is going up. That was such a cool scene, and I cried during that scene. It was very unexpected. It was the exact moment when I could feel myself I got overcome with emotion when Miguel said, "You're the original anomaly," and like the music was swelling up. I was like, "Ooh, plot twist!" I'm feeling that, like the filmmakers want me to feel something right now, and I'm feeling something right now, but I don't know what it is yet. And then he says, "You're a mistake," and then like on cue, I started crying. Like I didn't start like sobbing. No, I didn't start doing that, but like just swallowing spit became very hard, and then tears streamed down my face. And I was like, is this going to, are you talking to Miles or are you talking to me? Like when Miguel said, "You're a mistake," I felt that. And I felt it for reasons completely unrelated to the movie. Well, that's what I thought at the time, but you know how movies work, you know how stories work, you know how relatability works. And Miles' story, his character, very well written, and I was relating to it, but I didn't realize that I was relating to it in the way that I was relating to it. It was on so many levels, most of them known to me, and then of course, because of that moment, it led me to believe that this movie was also very relatable to me on a spiritual level, on a level that I couldn't register yet. And in that moment, it registered when he said, "You're a mistake." I felt like he was talking to me. What else did he say? "You're just a kid who has no idea what he's doing." And like, man, tears came out, and then I wiped my face, and then more tears came out. And I was like, what? I kept watching the movie because I was like, hey, I cry when I'm watching stuff now. I'm cool with that, so I'm gonna let it happen, and I'll investigate my feelings later. I just knew that I felt that way because of... So why did I cry? Because like, As one of my close friends later said, when he watched the movie, he watched it way after me. When I watched that scene and I cried during that scene, even though I was okay with crying, I felt like it was still like a weird place in the movie to cry. um, and I thought this was like a completely, no one could relate to me crying in that very moment. And then probably maybe a week later, one of my closest friends, he just comes in a group chat and he's like, when Miguel says you're a mistake to Miles, every child who's always felt unwanted by their parents felt that. And I was like, that's the thing. That's what I felt. That's what I felt. I'm not trying to say like my parents don't want me or anything. This isn't about to get depressing. My parents love me very much, I'm sure, and I love them very much as well. But growing up with African parents it's not the best thing in the world. They're not the most emotionally available people you could ever imagine. They don't talk about their feelings much. Unless they're disappointed, or unless you failed something, unless you did something bad, that's when they show emotion. Not so much when you do something good. I'm sure they do show emotion, but not in a way that easily registers to a child. So growing up in this kind of environments that I'm sure a lot of African kids can relate to, you kind of feel like your existence is performance based. And like some of these emotions and thoughts are things I started to understand once I got older. Like, I didn't ask to be here. Suddenly I was here, and before I knew what was happening, I was expected to do stuff and be stuff. And when I wasn't that stuff, people around me were unhappy. People I looked up to, people I admired, people I worshipped. Because you're a child. And then, like, you don't know how life works, and then you do life wrong a little bit, and then people get upset. You're like, oh, okay, is that how it works? And because you're a child, when other bad things happen, or when you want to go somewhere with your aunt, and then she's like, go get the shoes and we'll go together, and then you run to the other room, you go get shoes, then you come back, and then she's gone. You're like, oh, well, you cry first, and then you're like, why did that happen? And then it happens like 4 more times with 4 other people, and then you internalize that stuff. And not soon after, I'm sure the pattern builds, and of course it lasts until you're an adult and it's messing up your romantic relationships. At a certain point, it becomes a pattern where if something bad happens, you can't help but relate it to another bad thing happening. In the same way, ancient people thought God was mad if a big storm happened after they had done something maybe not the best thing. And so, of course, that pattern, like, it stays with you. Every time you do something wrong, like now when you're an adult, maybe you don't do something wrong to, like, someone maybe it's not a parent, but maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a partner, and you do something wrong, and then something else goes wrong in the relationship. It's very hard to not think, oh, that's my fault. I did that. That's my handiwork. And like the nature of relationships is a lot of times, as in 100% of the time, the other person is also living their own life, and they also have stuff that they're dealing with. So when something is wrong on their end, like, it's not always you, man. Like, they have their life too. It's not always related to you. You're not as bad as you think you are. But back to why that you're a mistake line hit me so much is because, yeah, for a long time, I felt like a mistake. Maybe it didn't feel that way in those kinds of words, but for most of my life, I haven't liked myself very much. I like myself a great deal now, which is I'm happy to report that. But this is like a very recent development, maybe the last 6 months, 8 months, if I'm being generous. And I'm 26 years old. So for 25 years, or for the conscious years within those 25 years, I wasn't crazy about myself. Like, I didn't like myself very much. I know the thing I did a lot was try to make other people happy. Because if I figured if I made other people happy, then they would remember that I'm the person who made them happy, and they would want to keep me around, so they wouldn't leave me. And that would mean that I mattered, and I wasn't such a mistake. Things are different now. I like myself. I think I'm okay. I think I'm more than okay, actually. But it hasn't always been like that. I've had to do a lot of personal growth things to be able to get to that point. To be able to feel like maybe Miguel is wrong. Maybe I'm not a mistake.